Ha ha. Yep, ha ha. Okamotoya stationery store had an ink showing a little bit before Christmas. I was feeling sick at the time and didn't stay long, but before I left I had noticed they were selling Sailor Manyo inks. As they are sold exclusively outside of Japan, I had the privilege of paying about 35% more than you would in Korea or the United States. The Korean company had brought it back into Japan, and I'm glad they did. Haha is one of the new kinds of inks that have been popular lately that are very thin and multicolored. This includes colors like Sailor's Studio 123, Troublemaker's Abalone, and several other colors in that line, and Neko Yanagi, another color in the Sailor Manyo line. At first, I had a lot of problems with the ink. It is an unusual ink in that it's very thin and light and kind of watery looking. The strange thing is that it isn't dry, but I can't think of another word other than recalcitrant. I don't know how to explain it other than to say it has a really high surface tension. The surface tension in my eyedroppered pen BBS was so high that the ink didn't come out of the chamber in the barrel into the section. I held the pen vertical and unscrewed the section, and the ink was just stuck up in there in the chamber. But once you pressed down on the pen or gave it a quick shake, then it would flow like a normal ink, not too dry or not too wet. I tried this ink in 12 different pens, and it was pretty much the same for all the pens except for 2. My Pilot Parallel 3.8 and a Zizo medium nib pen. The ink was so thin I had problems filming my ink drips into water as the camera kept focusing through the ink onto the building in the background. Now you're thinking I don't like this ink, but I do. I love it. Let me show you why. Here I'm drawing several straight lines with my Pilot Parallel 3.8. It looks like just kind of a thin, light blue color. And here are those same lines about a minute later. Not only does it shade really well, but it shades in different colors. The shading is in pink and green. Here I'm writing with a flex pen, and as you can see, it doesn't write dry and it flows very well as long as you get it started. Here is the same thing I wrote about a minute later, and it just floored me how many different colors pop up. It's a shading ink, but kind of a multicolored shading ink. I really don't know what to call this kind of ink. It is a shading ink, but a multicolored shading ink. Maybe someone can tell me about it in the comments. Until then, I'm going to call it chromo shading ink. As you can see here, the beautiful color in the flex writing. It was way too light and fine and difficult to write with. The medium and FA nib worked okay, but as you can see here, the FPR Ultraflex, I really had a lot of problem with it. I had some problems with my stub. It's an Eboya Bach nib. On the first fill, I was just practicing, and the ink out of my Eboya looked purplish red. Clean my pens pretty well, but I don't put anything other than bluish inks into my Eboya. And the whole fill was this way. I dripped out the rest of the ink out of the converter onto the paper. I think it's a very reactive ink. And the 3.8 shows the gorgeous multicolored shading. Chromo shading. On the right is Tomoe River, on the left is Graphilo, and even in a medium nib you can see the beautiful shading of this color. The dry time was a little over 10 seconds, but you couldn't tell when you smeared the color. The smeared part was just too light. I did a waterproof test, but I cut it off on the bottom of the film. It's not water resistant at all. Here you can see when you drip the ink and then blot it up right away, it leaves behind a kind of pink color, which is one of the colors of the ink, and that's what gets left over when you do the waterproof test. The splotch test is pretty, but not that unusual. It does show some of the lighter colors that are in the ink. In comparison, Troublemaker's abalone is a lot darker, but also has that multicolor shading. And it shows some of its green on the back side, and then the pink on the back side of Haha. 123, like abalone, is darker with not much color variation, and then the pink really shows up on the back side. And here's abalone, 123, and Haha. Next up is the chromatography for all three. As you can see, they're already separating out before they even get wet. You could tell you're going to have crazy chromatography by just looking at the paper towels that you use to clean up. As you would expect, Haha's chromatography has several colors, but it's not as wild as abalone or 123. Their colors striated out a lot more clear. But this kind of chromatography result, I think, is very indicative of these kinds of chromo shading inks. This ink is well worth the small amount of trouble it'll give you. It's not the kind of ink that you would use, like say in a business situation or taking quick notes at school. It's more kind of ink you'd want to use when you feel like playing around with, say, like a folded nib or some flex writing. If you want something a little more reliable but still fun, you might want to try Troublemaker's abalone or Sailor's 123. But Sailor's Haha from their Manyo line is a really fun ink, and I think any inkophile should have Haha in their arsenal. And for all my buds here in Tokyo, if you want a sample, I still have some left over. I'd appreciate some feedback or comments, and if you're interested in unusual ink videos like this or videos about Japan in general, then please subscribe. I post every Friday evening Tokyo time.